continuing reading the book that I've been reading, Ancient Mysteries of Modern Masonry. But I've been wanting to, before I read, actually get into some current events, show how far down, spiraling into hell that we're really going. But I found this something. This is from the Daily Mail. There's nothing Democrats can do to stop Latinos from abandoning Biden in droves. When he and his party chose socialism and wokeism over the American dream, they lost us, writes Gloria Romero, former Democratic leader of the California State Senate. Yeah, only 26% of Latinos approve of this pedophile bozo. Just in time for the upcoming celebrations of Cinco de Mayo, Latinos are sending unmistakable mutterings that's in Spanish, but it's their Spanish version of "Let's Go Brandon" to the Biden administration and the Democratic Party. The most recent tolling of the political bells was revealed in last week's Quinnipiac poll. And maybe I'm not pronouncing these right, so I haven't even really heard of that, so sorry. But Quinnipiac, so showing only 26% of Latinos approve of the way President Joe Biden is handling his job. That's nearly a 10-point drop of Biden's approval rating among Latinos from April 6th, when he garnered a paltry 34%. Okay. Not content to be the little brown ones, Latinos from Cuban Americans in Florida to Mexican Americans in Texas and beyond are giving double middle fingers to the Democrats and their political coyotes. Wow. And this former Democratic majority leader of California State Senate is on the brink of leaving the party. Wow. The problem is the party itself and what it has come to represent. The modern progressive Democratic Party increasingly leans towards socialism, bewildering definitions of the genders, greater state control of our children, infanticide, defined as reproductive rights, and of course hostility to the idea of border and law enforcement. Yeah, so you got another group of people that are just leaving the Looney Tune Democratic Party in droves. Oh yeah, well, I'm gonna say that when during the late Trump years, when I started this channel, I was kind of talking about how the pendulum's going to swing far right. If Biden got in, and after seeing some of this, there's going to be something big that's going to happen, but I don't know if this country's even in the same state it is in the next couple years. I really wonder what this next guy's going to be. Certainly the Democrats are basically, the Democratic Party is just, I mean, it's just decaying and dying. I'm sure all by design, you know, that left versus right. It's all part of the plan. So, something else I caught, and yes, this is from InfoWars. People out there that are, well, Alex Jones is a shill. Well, okay, but that doesn't mean that he don't report stuff that's true. Like this one. World Economic Forum guru admits, quote, they want more souls. I want less on the planet, unquote. During the World Economic Forum's 2019 India Economic Summit, forum speaker Sadhguru, a yogi author, laughed out loud after admitting he wants more people to die. The visionary has been a primary speaker at the United Nations World Headquarters and United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification and is a regular speaker at the World Economic Forum, India Economic Summit, and TED conferences. According to the World Economic Forum's website, Sadhguru, quote, founded Isha Foundation, a non-profit organization with human well-being as its core commitment, unquote. However, the video below shows Sadhguru telling an interviewer, quote, all the religious groups are against me because I'm talking about population. They want more souls. I want less on the planet, unquote. You know, gotta love those Hindus. I don't know. Both Sadhguru and the person questioning him broke out into a Dr. Evil type sinister laugh following the disturbing remark. You can catch that. Just Google that in InfoWars, and they got the clip on there with him actually saying all that and then laughing. So yeah, I mean it's real news. You know, I follow real news. Okay. Not pushing Alex Jones, I'm pushing the real news that he will sometimes report. So, yep, they want to kill us. Either want to kill us, control us, take everything we have, enslave us in a new world order, and all the dumbass sheep out there still are in La La Land, pretending it's a quote-unquote conspiracy theory. Pretty soon it's going to bite them in the ass really frickin' hard, and they're not going to be able to deny it any more longer. So, continuing on with this book here, Ancient Mysteries of Modern Masonry, getting into the heart and soul of these people's agenda of becoming gods and playing God with this planet. So, Lecture 2. Undoubtedly, the ceremonies of initiation were originally few, and all were intended to symbolize the progress of the human soul. They were the outward signs of an inward fact. Initiation, as we shall see in a subsequent lecture, was regeneration, a real new spiritual new becoming or rebirth. The candidate himself became the thing symbolized. Hermes, Buddha, Christ, etc. This state was the result of real initiation and evolution of the human into the divine. And we already went through the previous lecture where he talked about that meaning man through initiation becoming God. So now we understand that state that they want to get to by finding the Christ within, he becomes the Christ, he becomes God. In the course of time, this spiritual truth was neglected, and initiation no longer meant spiritual regeneration, and the rites no longer typified the various stages of the soul's progress, the mystic birth, death, and resurrection. The key to the spiritual science was forgotten, the master's word lost. An initiation consisted merely in imparting to the candidate the traditional knowledge of the symbols as handed down from time immemorial, and gradually the true meaning of the symbols disappeared, and even the symbols themselves were transformed into crude dogmas. The ceremonies of initiation. The ancient mysteries were divided into two stages, the probationary path and the advanced or path proper. In most schools, the probationary path was merely preliminary, but as some schools began with the preliminary and numbering the stages or divisions, one needs to be on guard to avoid misunderstandings. Others, as in Greece, divided their mysteries into the lesser and the greater, beyond which there was the mature mystery of the path. In other systems, the true and the greater mysteries were undoubtedly the same. The higher evolution belonged to the true or real mysteries to which all others led. A neophyte was compelled to be proficient along these lines before he was allowed to take the real initiation and enter upon the path proper, which would be considered in a subsequent lecture. There were outer forms of ceremonies which stood for and symbolized the true mysteries, but little was known of their inner nature except by those who experienced them. The ceremonies were undoubtedly altered in the course of time, but even in the days of the greatest deterioration we find traces of the hidden wisdom in connection with the ancient symbols, some of which have survived and are to be found in modern Masonry. The Egyptian Mysteries. The learned Greek Plutarch, himself an initiate into the Osirica, of which there was probably a Theasos at Delphi, gives much valuable information regarding the mysteries of Egypt. Of course, he could only give hints, for as he says, in speaking of the priests, quote, their philosophy, which for the most part was hidden in myths and words, containing dim reflections and transparencies of truth, as doubtless they themselves make indirectly plain by fitly setting sphinxes up before the temples as though their reasoning about the gods possessed a wisdom wrapped in riddle. So great then was the care the Egyptians took about the wisdom which concerned the mysteries of the gods. And the most wise of the Greeks also are witnesses. Solon, Thales, Plato, Eudoxus, Pythagoras, and as some say, Lycurgus, or Lycurgus, one of the two, but it's Lycurgus, so as well, through coming to Egypt and associating with her priests, and brought back to the memory of his men their symbolic and mysterious art containing their dogma and dark sayings. When therefore thou hearest the myth sayings of the Egyptians concerning the gods, wonderings and dismemberings and many such passions, thou shouldest remember what has been said above, and think none of these things spoken as they really are in state and action, unquote. That's Plutarch concerning the mysteries of Isis and Osiris, section 9, 10, and 11. This is true not only of the Egyptian myths, but of all others. Plutarch then sets forth the Osiris and Isis mystery myth. It begins with the birth of the gods, Osiris, the elder Horus, Typhon, Isis, etc. Osiris and Isis, being in love with each other, were united. They ruled over Egypt for many years, but finally the malicious Typhon, his evil brother, while filled with envy, sought his destruction. He devised a beautiful chest, and having it brought into the banquet hall, promised to give it to anyone whom it would exactly fit. Osiris stepped in and lay down, whereupon they who were present rushed up and put on the lid and fastened it down and carried the chest to the river Nile, whence it was borne out on the flood of the sea. When Isis heard what had been done, she set forth in search of the chest, which meanwhile had been carried by the waves to the Byblos country, where the land wash brought it to rest in a certain heather bush, or tamarisk tree, a species of acacia. This bush grew around and folded and hid it entirely within itself. The king Malcander marveled at the greatness of the tree, and cut it down and made of it a prop in the form of a pillar for his roof. But Isis, having found trace of the chest and its disposition through Anubis, and the Demean spirit of a voice, came also to Byblos, and sitting down by a fountainhead, showed attention to the maids of the queen, dressing their hair with ambrosia, thus securing an invitation to the palace, where she became nurse of the queen's little child. Then, finding time ripe to reveal herself, the goddess claimed for her own the pillar of the roof, and taking it down, she cut the tree from around the coffin, and placing the chest in a boat, carried the body to her son Horus, who concealed it in a deep forest. But Typhon, while out hunting, came upon it, and recognizing the body as that of Osiris, tore it into 14 parts and scattered them abroad. Isis, hearing what had been done, sought to recover the parts, and succeeding in finding all but one, which had been cast into the river and eaten by the fishes. You know what's interesting about the taking a moment break here is you'll find in the whole. I shouldn't risk saying this, right? Because you just say it. You know, YouTube might take your channel down, but the whole Pizzagate, situation. You had that Podesta guy, Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, who was in the WikiLeaks emails. I guess they were emailing, corresponding, using that weird language that people were, the FBI files, clearly were showing that it was pedophile code language. But anyways, there's a picture of one of the Podesta guy, and he's got his two hands up. And one hand has 14, the number 14 on it. The other hand has a fish. So, showing himself to be an initiate of one of these mystery cults. For, as we just read here, Osiris was cut into 14 parts. The one part that Isis couldn't find was the phallus, which was eaten by a fish. Understanding their symbolism really pays off, doesn't it? Horus then fought Typhon and overpowered him when it was proclaimed that Osiris had risen from the dead. This is merely an outline of the myth that has a macrocosmic and microcosmic meaning. In the former sense, Osiris and Isis are cosmic or supercosmic beings, symbolized by the sun and moon, and the elder and younger Horus are the intelligible and sensible worlds. Microcosmically, the myth pertains to the mystery of initiation, the Horus or Christ stage of manhood. In this latter aspect, it symbolizes the mystic life of the initiate. The Christ stage of manhood is when the initiate becomes deified. In regard to initiation, Plutarch says, quote, "When the initiates of Isis at their death are adorned in these robes, it is a symbol that this reason, Logos, is with them. And with him and not else they go there, or walk there, that is in Hades. The death here mentioned is the mystic death under sin. For it is not the growing beard and wearing cloak that makes philosophers, O Clea, not clothing in linen and shaving oneself that makes initiates of Isis, but a true Isaac is one who, when he by law receives them, searches out by reason, Logos, the mystery shown and done concerning these gods, and meditates upon the truth in them." Unquote. This mystery rite is referred to by Epiphanius as solemnized in the temple of Isis, who is called the Virgin Mother, or World Virgin. And speaking of the Feast of Epiphany, which was a great day in Egypt connected with the birth of the Eon, a phase of the birth of Horus, he says, quote, Indeed, the leaders of the idol cults, filled with wiles to deceive the idol worshippers who believe in them, in many places keep highest festival on this same night of Epiphany, the manifestation of light, so that they whose hopes are in error may not seek the truth. For instance, Alexandria, in the Corion, as it is called, an immense temple, that is to say, the precinct of the Virgin, after they have kept all night vigil with song and music, chanting to their idol, when the vigil is over at cockcrow, they descend with lights into an underground crypt and carry up a wooden image lying naked on a litter with the seal of a cross made in gold on its forehead, and on either hand 2 similar seals, and on both knees 2 others, all 5 seals being similarly made in gold. And they carry around the image itself, circumambulating 7 times the innermost temple, to the accompaniment of pipes, tabors, and hymns, and with merrymaking they carry it down again underground. And if they are asked the meaning of this mystery, they answer and say, quote, "Today at this hour the maiden core, that is the Virgin, gave birth to the Eon. In the city of Petra also the same is done, and they sing the praises of the Virgin, and him who is born from her, Zeus, that is, alone begotten of the Lord. This also takes place in the city of Elogia on the same night, just as at Petri and at Alexandria. Epiphanius, as an outsider, could not be expected to understand the rites he describes, and as a narrow bigot, he cannot be expected to deal with them fairly. But the importance of the passage is the testimony it bears to the fact that one of the most widespread mystic festivals was connected with a rite of resurrection. You notice here the crowning of the cock, which is connected with the crucifixion of Jesus, and the cross marked on the forehead, hands, and knees or feet of the image, or the one who has returned from the underworld, Hades. Epiphanius tells us that this mystic rite represents a macrocosmic mystery. Very true, but it also represents a microcosmic mystery. The mystic birth, death, and resurrection were familiar to all the schools and communities of ancient times, and the mystic rising again from the dead was an integral part of the universal mystic drama. The initiations of Egypt, as are described by C.W. Leadbeater, a well-known theosophical writer, as follows. And by the way, C.W. Leadbeater, look him up. He was known, there's a case against him, I guess, for something sexual related with like a child or something. Just go look up C.W. Leadbeater. Quote, "The candidate was attired in a white robe, emblematic of the purity which was expected, and brought before a conclave of priest initiates in a sort of vault or cavern. He was first formally tested as to the development of the clairvoyant faculty, which he had been previously instructed how to awaken, and for this purpose had to read an inscription upon a brazen shield, of which the blank side was presented to his physical vision. Later, he was left alone to keep a kind of vigil. Certain mantras or words of power had been taught him, which were supposed to be appropriate to control a certain class of entities." Interesting. Other ceremonies of the Egyptian mysteries are of interest. At one stage of his advancement, the candidate laid himself upon a curiously hollowed wooden cross, and after certain ceremonies was entranced. His body was then carried down into the vaults underneath the temple or pyramid, while he himself descended into Hades, or the underworld, that is to say, in our modern nomenclature. He passed on to the astral plane. Here he had many experiences, part of his work being to preach to the spirits in prison, where he remained in that trance condition 3 days and 3 nights, which typified the 3 rounds and the intervals between them, during which man was going through the earlier part of his evolution and descending into matter. Then after 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth, on the morning of the 4th day, he rose again from the dead, that is, his body was brought back from the vault, and so placed that the rays of the rising sun fell upon his face, and he awoke. This symbolizes the awakening of man in the 4th round and the commencement of his ascent out of matter on the upward arc of evolution, unquote. That's taken from his Glimpses of Occultism, page 73. According to Peichman, the Egyptian mysteries had three grades: mortals, intelligences, and creators of light. The mortals were probationary pupils who were instructed in the doctrine but who had not yet realized the inner vision. The intelligences were those who had attained the inner vision and had become men and received mind. The creators, or sons of light, were those who had become one with the light, had attained to the true spiritual consciousness. These three stages are called by W. Marsham Adams initiation, illumination, and perfection. This state could be attained while yet in the body and included the after-death consciousness as a part of its content. The ancient temples of initiation in Egypt were models of the heavenly Jerusalem, a type of the world building, to use a Jewish Gnostic term. Adams describes the temple at Dendera thus, quote, "In the center of the temple is the hall of the altar, which, with entrances opening east and west, and beyond it lies the great hall of the temple, entitled the Hall of the Child in his cradle, from whence access is obtained to the secret and sealed shrine, entered once a year by the high priest on the night of midsummer," unquote. The Book of the Master, or the Egyptian Doctrine of the Light Born of the Virgin Mother is the name of that quote was taken from. Page 24. There were also various halls and chambers, such as the Hall of the Golden Rays, Chamber of Gold, Chamber of Birth, Dwelling of the Golden One, Chamber of Flames, all having reference to the mysteries of light and the divine birth. The chief hall of the temple was the Hall of the Child in his cradle, and the chief representative on the planisphere is the Holy Mother with the divine child in her arms, unquote. Speaking of, I mentioned that Hindu in that InfoWars article, getting into the Hindu mysteries. Figured I'd do that with my next video, since I just started on that. So, well, that was a mouthful. A lot of information. So, there's some news apparently with droughts that are going on. Yeah, California declares historic water emergency measures amid drought. Outdoor watering will be restricted to 1 day a week for about 6 million people. Can you believe that? Man, we all better wake up, because the party time's just about over. The historically severe drought in Southern California has compelled one of its water suppliers to implement emergency conservation measures for the first time that will affect about 6 million people. The Metropolitan Water District of Southern California declared the water shortage emergency Tuesday and ordered limits to reduce non-essential water use to parts of Los Angeles, Ventura, and San Bernardino counties. The move includes the unprecedented measure of restricting outdoor watering to 1 day a week for about a third of their region. The Water District attributed the emergency declaration to its reliance on severely limited water supplies in Northern California, which is also enduring extreme drought. It comes as the state has experienced a lack of precipitation and abnormally high temperatures in recent years. Quote, "The past 3 years are projected to be the driest in our state's history, leading to drought conditions unlike anything we've experienced before," unquote. And, to those people who just deny there's anything going on with the weather, I mean, this whole winter here in Iowa, I think we've had one major snowstorm, and that wasn't even major. That was just a regular, typical snowstorm. Just one. We didn't get any snow, Thanksgiving, Christmas. I really didn't come until I think like mid-January. Then we just had a couple of dustings. But I mean, there is something, we are, I think we're in an emergency situation. I mean, it is just, and they're bringing us there, through the geoengineering climate modification, climate warfare, because of course they want their new world order. They have to have that reason, and so this is just a part of it. And they will not quit until we either wake up fully, fully wake up, truly wake up, and actually, do the, forget the internet at that point. Just really going out, and just doing whatever you can politically to get these people, or till we voluntarily place the shackles over our ankles and hands and submit to their world socialist government. Can't be on the fence anymore. We got to make a choice.